Check out this list of 9 different types of financial aid for graduate school. Number 1 is scholarships. A scholarship is the best kind of way to get money for school, right? This is based on merit. A scholarship might be something that's actually very much merit, or it could also just be strategic discounting by the school. It really depends. So for example, if the school knows that the average price they really will charge people is around half of what their stated tuition is, they might offer a scholarship, which is actually strategic discounting as part of the school's program to maximize revenue, because for some people they might not discount and for others they would. So scholarships are often heavily negotiable, and you want to work with the school to figure out what's the maximum package that you can get. I will say though that discounting is far more common in the undergrad world than the graduate school world, for reasons I'll get into at the end of this video. Number 2 is grants. The difference between a grant and a scholarship is that a grant is typically need-based. So grants can come in a lot of different forms. It might come in the form of support from a federal institution. It might come from a federal program or a state program or a private donor. A grant is generally something that doesn't need to be paid back, as is a scholarship, unlike some of the other kinds of aid in this video. Number 3 is a assistantship. So an assistantship is generally an employee arrangement. You're an employee of a university, and that means you're getting taxable income from that university, you're subject to Social Security and FICA withholding, and you're just considered basically a traditional employee, maybe even somebody who qualifies for benefits. So the assistantship is something that you want to look at on a case-by-case basis. A lot of times you might get PhD candidates funded this way, and you just want to look at number 3 versus number 4, which is a fellowship. So a fellowship, you get a stipend for services. There's maybe more generous tax implications where you might be able to deduct more of your expenses perhaps against the tuition charged. A true fellow is often somebody who has a little bit more free range in terms of what things that they investigate from a research perspective. So options 3 and 4 for funding graduate school are often ways that somebody pursuing a PhD might get funding for graduate school instead of somebody, say, pursuing just a broad professional school degree program that they're intending to make an income in the outside of the university setting in. But that's number 4. Number 5 is work study. Now, work study, again, is more commonly used in the undergrad world, but you can use it in the graduate school world too. You can get a part-time job through the university or some sort of arrangement where you're teaching one class, or maybe you're working in the library or something. There's a lot of different ways that you can get some work study credit towards your cost of your degree, and it's going to depend on a case-by-case basis. But a work study program is going to be a lot more limited in scope than a fellowship or an assistantship. Now, number 6 and 7 are things that you actually have to pay back. So number 6 is federal student loans. Now for graduate school, you have a lot of options for borrowing for your degree program. You can take out Stafford unsubsidized loans, which have a limit of about $20,500 to $40,500, depending on what degree program you're pursuing. And after you've maximized out all those loans, you can take out Grad Plus loans on top of that up to the cost of attendance. So there's really a lot of ways that you can borrow as much as you need for graduate school with federal student loans. Those do have benefits like loan forgiveness, where you can pay 10% of your income on income-based repayment plans after graduation, but know that they do have to be paid back, unlike some of these other forms of financial aid. Number 7 is private student loans. Generally speaking, you always want to only take out federal student loans unless there's a really clear reason why you would want to opt for a private student loan. A couple cases where you might consider a private student loan is if you are, say, an MBA student going to a top grad school program, top business school, and you're graduating with a modest amount of debt relative to your really high salary you're going to be earning. You might opt for a private student loan because it might carry a lower origination fee than a federal student loan, which you generally charge 1% to 4% as an upfront origination fee, and often they'll have lower interest rates for people in elite programs that are going straight to the private sector. Those are really the only people, though, that I would advise to take a private student loan for a graduate school program. And if you are looking for private student loan options, studentloanplanner.com/private will show you some of the lenders that you could consider. Number 8 on the 9 types of financial aid for grad school is crowdfunding. Now, this might sound a little silly, but what I really mean by this is 529 savings or personal savings from family, friends, and anyone else that wants to support you. So crowdfunding doesn't necessarily mean you make a GoFundMe to set up your fund to go to dental school. That's not what I'm saying, because I don't think a lot of people would be particularly sympathetic to that, given that you're making an investment in your own education, and most people have the expectation that you or your family will be paying for your education, and you won't be asking necessarily friends for that help. But what can you do with getting money from family particularly? You can have 529 money pay for your cost of education. If you have any leftover funds that you didn't use from undergrad, you can use those for graduate school. You can also ask a spouse or a partner or parents if they would like to contribute, while also knowing that, a lot of people have the attitude that the person getting the graduate degree should be the one to pay their own cost of education. So know that that's a preconceived view for a lot of people, but know that there's nothing wrong with asking for unused 529 money that maybe your family didn't end up using for undergrad, or even your own savings. You can use that for your financial costs that you're incurring from your graduate school education. Number 9 is employer contributions for student loan repayment. So employers can now do up to $5,250 towards paying back your student loans. Now that's not technically a form of financial aid, whereas what that program is modeled off of is something called an Educational Assistance Program, an EAP. And that's a program that allowed employers to do up to $5,250 tax-free towards tuition and fees, basically, educational expenses for employees, as long as they offer the program to everybody and comply with IRS guidelines. So your employer can actually be a source of funds either on the front end to prevent student loans or on the back end to get student loan repayment assistance. So that's the 9th path of getting financial aid support for graduate school. Just a quick word, I would strongly suggest that you negotiate with the program that you're going to. Now, it's going to be harder for graduate school because grad schools know they can get an unlimited amount of money out of you because of the federal student loan program. You can borrow up to the cost of attendance with no underwriting. So because of that, they're a lot less willing to negotiate over the cost of the program than undergrad programs are, but you should still try. And also consider that loan forgiveness might make it so that going for federal student loans and borrowing the full amount might be a better path than taking out some of these other options. You want to consider, what is your plan post-graduation? If you need to go to a particular program or feel like you have a higher chance at ending up in your preferred destination by going to a specific program, for example, let's say one school has a better placement rate into research universities than another school, but the school that has a better placement rate charges higher fees, or you'd have to borrow for that. With the federal student loan system being so generous towards loan forgiveness, that might be worth it for you to pursue that avenue of funding instead of trying to go to a lower ranked school that's offering you a full fellowship, for example. So weigh the pros and the cons with what kind of financial aid to take out. We do have a pre-debt consult at Student Loan Planner to help you strategize what the cost of grad school is going to look like and how it will impact your finances. So we give you a detailed breakdown of what the school's actual finance cost will be, as well as what your repayment options could look like after graduation. So if you're interested in that, go to studentloanplanner.com/predebt. Now watch our next video about what you should use student loans for and how to best strategize towards maximizing your student loan benefits.